Hallo. Ist jetzt quasi nur ein Versuch erstmal. Aber ich heiße euch herzlich willkommen zu einer Podfic. Wie gesagt, erstmal ein Versuch. Es ist eine englische Podfic. Nennt sich Small World. Oder It's a Small World. Und spielt im My Hero Academia Universum. Von Emphasis on Ghostwriter. Wie gesagt, ist eine englische Fic. Und ich lese die jetzt vor. Englisch ist nicht meine Native Language. Aber ich gebe mein Bestes. It's a small world. Izuku was shaken from his ruminations by his phone buzzing in his pocket. Alien Queen, I'm gonna buy you a beginner energy drink. Actually, you're asleep. There's nothing wrong with my coffee. Purple, oh please do. Alien Queen, you don't have to wait for them to brew or cool off, and they have lids. You can just throw them in your bag and have them whenever. Actually you're asleep. Absolutely not. Why do I put up with any of you? Purple, pretty sure his bloodstream is just coffee at this point. He'd probably just immediately die if he drank anything else. Loud and proud, because you love us. Actually asleep, that's a weird way to spell love. Loud and proud. For that, I'm replacing your coffee with an energy drink in the morning. I want a divorce. So. Chapter 1. Where it began. Midoriya Izuku heißt Kitty Cat, Claus, Shinzo Hitoshi, Purple, Monoma Nato, Copycat, Yamada Hisashi, Loud and Proud, Aizawa Shota, Actually Asleep, Tsukaushi Naomasa, Headman, Ashido Mina, Alien Queen. Izuku didn't expect his day to go to hell in a handbasket at 4 in the afternoon. Not quite a vigilante that he was. He had learned to expect that some level of hell in a handbasket could happen at any moment, but he still hadn't expected it to that degree while he was out running errands. As it was, his arms were too full of groceries to be able to fight back against the sludge villain, and by the time he dropped them, the guy was already forcing his rancid slime down Izuku's nose and throat. He'd always thought if a villain was going to take him out, it'd either be at an ungodly hour of the morning on one of his patrols, not the middle of the day in broad daylight. His last thoughts before blacking out were of Eraserhead, the hero and would-be pseudo-father figure he sometimes spent his patrols with, and just how worried the man was going to be when Izuku just suddenly stopped showing up. Then he woke up to All Might himself slapping him awake. Izuku might have had plenty of experience interacting with heroes between spending most nights needling Eraserhead, bonding with, as the hero would have described it. The man had been trying to adopt him for over a year after all, and running circles around any other hero that had tried to take him in as a vigilante. But this was All Might. Izuku could be excused a few moments of fanboying of the man who'd been an inspiration to him since he was 4. Ignoring the niggling thought in the back of his head about how All Might had signed his autograph before checking on the caution's victim, Izuku let himself get swept up in the excitement of the moment. This was his chance to finally ask the one question he'd always needed to ask. He'd probably never get a chance to again. He wasn't expecting to find himself alone on the roof of some random office building, reeling from the twin shocks of suddenly learning government secrets and hearing All Might crush his dreams with a single no. Izuku stared at the point All Might had disappeared from, with a soda bottle-bound villain before collapsing down onto the sun-warmed cement with a single humorless half of a laugh. Be realistic, All Might had said. Izuku wondered if the man knew what it meant for the quirkless in this day and age. Realistic would probably have him taking the fast route of this roof. Honestly, at this point it was barely realistic that Izuku was even still alive. Long story short, his sperm donor had left for America, then was diagnosed, and wasn't it a crook of bullshit that he was diagnosed quirkless at 4 when Inku had joined him 6 years later, leaving Izuku to fend for himself at the ripe old age of 10. It had been difficult and terrifying, but he'd made it work, using his wits and analytical skills and a strong, if hidden, quirkless community to support himself. Some of the next few years saw learning self-defense turn into accidentally saving a girl not much older than himself, as from being mugged turned into becoming the youngest vigilante, codenamed Ghost, Mr. Father had ever seen. Expect not really, because latent cat mutation, soft green fjord Earth, nested amongst his quills, extended cannons and claws replacing his fingernails from his maternal grandfather's side, Izuku was still very much quirkless, and very much fell into the vigilantism and his unauthorized quirk usage loophole. The mutation, for better or worse, doesn't count, and most people these days had some form of latent mutation anyways. He also accidentally caught the eye of one perpetually exhausted underground hero who'd taken one look at an unattended child and a sorry excuse for a vigilante get up, bleeding alone in an alleyway, and called dibs. It had taken years, but the man was making progress and working his way through Izuku's trust issues and closer to the day Izuku lets him and his husband officially adopt the kid. All this to say, Izuku had long ago taken realistic into his own hands and all men could shove it where the sun don't shine. The young teen was shaken from his ruminations by his phone buzzing in his pocket. Alien Queen, I'm gonna buy you a beginner energy drink. Actually asleep. There's nothing wrong with my coffee. Purple, oh please do. Alien Queen, you don't have to wait for them to brew or cool off, and they have lids. You can just throw them in your bag and have them whenever. Actually asleep, absolutely not. Why do I put up with any of you? Purple, pretty sure his bloodstream is just coffee at this point. He'd probably just immediately die if he drank anything else. Loud and proud, because you love us. Actually asleep, that's a weird way to spell love. Loud and proud. For that, I'm replacing your coffee with an energy drink in the morning. Actually asleep, I want a divorce. Headman, take your lover's quarrel elsewhere. Actually asleep. Fuck you, Headman. Aren't you supposed to be at work anyways? Copycat. What the fuck did I just walk into? Purple, that copycat alien is trying to convince Asleep to try energy drinks. Copycat, wouldn't it just kill him? Purple, that's what I said. Alien Queen, that's what Purple said. Izuku snorted at the antics in one of the chat servers. This one wasn't actually one of the quirkless servers he was in, but one for a wider demographic of anyone local who faced discrimination for any part of the quirks, latent or otherwise. While there were a few in the group that also knew each other out in the real world, loud and proud and actually asleep, being married, and also knowing Headman as an example, everyone kept their real identity secretive for safe. Not knowing who anyone was behind being residents of Musutaru didn't change the fact that they were the closest thing to family Izuku had. Quickly typing out his response, he leaped into the conversation. Kitty cat claws. He wouldn't even have to drink it. One existing within 5 feet of him would be enough to do him in. Purple, claws! Copycat, claws! Kitty cat claws. Purple, copycat! Alien Queen, kitty cat claws! Actually asleep. Kami and all 3 triplets are here. Attacking me. Copycat, but of course! Purple, what else would we do? Kitty cat claws. I could feel only was saying it was annoy a sleep horse. Alien Cream! Actually asleep. Loud and proud. Did you really type out sigh? Actually asleep. I'm in attack. I'm going to take a nap before my shift starts. Bye. Kitty cat claws. No for Copycat. Yeah, seems like something had to. Kitty cat claws. I gotta go too. See y'all later. Bye claws. Bye claws. Bye claws. Bye claws. Bye. Izuku picked himself up off the roof and slid his phone back into his pocket with a grin. He did have a proto to go grab his gear phone and a razor dad to annoy after all. It wasn't until the next day he remembered his groceries. In their private message later that evening, Sashi made the names and servers too soft to stop him. Moonbeam, Homecoming Claus got a goodbye, but I, your loving husband, didn't. Sunshine, he didn't threaten to divorce me. Chapter 2. Enter Razor Dad. Shoto threw himself onto the rooftop that was the meeting place this month with a sigh. It had been a long day that had already been part of a long week, but what else was new when you had 2 full-time jobs? At least taking care of criminals was easier than taking care of a class full of children, and no, he didn't care that they were teenagers. If they were going to act like children, he was going to call them children. There was a reason he'd expelled his entire class this year. "Hi, Resident!" The only other figure on the roof chirped with his distorted voice, giving him a cheerful wave. The vigilante was short, not surprising given his age, and dressed in a dark, somewhat fitted clothing that allowed for ease of movement, but still had some sort of lightweight armor woven that provided an extra level of protection. Fingerless gloves, an utility belt, and a helmet that covered his entire head, not unlike a motorcycle helmet. The helmet was originally black, but over the years had slowly become peppered in various ghost stickers. The vigilante poking fun at the moniker the police had originally given him for lack of anything else to call him. "Problem child," Shota huffed, sitting down next to the vigilante where he was sitting against the short wall, lining the roof, startling him slightly. The minute specimen in his hands was small, but still caught by the hero's keen eyes. Shota felt his concerns ratcheting up. Something had to have happened for his kid to be that distracted. He had great situational awareness personally trained into him by Shota himself, when he'd learned the hard way not to let it slip during a patrol. The man pulled a bounty box out of his uniform and passed it over while Ghost unbucked the lower front half of his helmet that covered his chin and mouth, leaving it to hang from the side of the top half. "Tashi made Katsudon for you." "Yes!" The kid cheered as he dug in, causing Aizawa to hide a grin in his capture scarf, knowing about this kid's favorite. "They make it the best! I'll be sure to let him know you think so. You'd better." The kid had entered the scene as a vigilante somewhere around 2 years ago, slipping into and out of the smaller crimes he preferred to stop while avoiding police and heroes alike like the phantom they'd named him after. For the longest time, all it had to go on were a string of whoever the kid had stopped that night, with the occasional victim description of someone small suddenly there, taking the would-be attacker with surprise and a well-thought-out plan, and usually just as suddenly gone. Though he had occasionally stayed to confront some of the younger and more scared victims before melting into the shadows just before police arrived. Something about it had set off warning sirens for Shota. He never sought credit for any of his taken downs, not uncommon for vigilantes given what they did was technically illegal, but he also gave them nothing to go on. Most at least gave themselves a name. That, combined with the smaller stature and the sarcasm reference, some of the witnesses had reported had given Shota a bad feeling about the whole thing. His husband and some of the friends, Nem and Tensei, had teased him about his dad tendencies when he'd expressed consent as a kid, but now it shared the same gut feeling, even he had thought Ghost was in his late teens at the youngest. None of them had been happy when the Shota has gotten confirmation first met the kid completely on accident. Ghost had always been smart about who he went after and how he did it, and while he clearly had some sort of training, he was still young. Shota had almost had a heart attack when he saw just how young the kid was, and less experienced than the grown adults he was going up against, and well, accidents happen to even the best fighters. A flash of red caught his attention at the tail end of his patrol one night. A very distinctive and far too small pair of shoes peeking out from behind a dumpster, and an alley at o'clock in the morning that Shota, as an underground hero, was very familiar with the statistics associated with. He'd done what any logical and decent person would do and moved to offer what help he could, honestly half dreading that he'd be finding a body. Luckily, the kid was alive, curled up in what shelter he'd been able to find in a beanie, dark sweets cloth face mask that had made up the first iteration of this vigilante gear. Shota still didn't know where the kid had gotten his current gear, and he was desperately curious. Kids shouldn't have access to armor, lightweight or otherwise. Helmets had doubled as gas masks and voice changers, or the sheer number of knives the kid had. Unluckily, he'd been stabbed in his side during his last fight, and like the absolute problem child he was, he put up one hell of a stink over getting medical attention. The saddest part was Shota wasn't even that surprised. He knew about the medical discrimination against the Quirkless, and could only imagine the issues the kid had faced from medical staff in the past that made him that requirement to go to the hospital. As it was, it still took too much pleading and too many reassurances that Shota wasn't going to make Ghost remove his mask or give his name, and that he knew he couldn't arrest this kid for vigatilism due to the loophole the kid fell into just to get him to agree to see a recovery girl. Overall, he wasn't very happy with the situation, and it burned that he had to agree to let the kid walk away at the end of it, but getting the kid healed took priority. The heartbreak and disappointment in Hisashi's eyes when he found out about the entire encounter after it had been nearly as crushing. The entire group made tease Aizawa for his dad instincts. Apparently it was funnier since Aizawa seemed less a type, but Hisashi was every bit as bad as he was, and this entire mess tore in at both. There was no way someone like Ghost would be out doing what he's doing if he had a solid home life, or literally anyone looking out for him. But it was glaringly obvious the kid was going to fight anything tooth and nail against anything that could end up putting him in the system. Neither blamed him, not really. Not with the scars Hisashi still bore from his own time in the system after deafening every caretaker he'd had until he learned control. The stories that heard from the online community they ran for people with undesirable quirks or the quirkless. Suffice to say, it took a negligible amount of time for them to decide to try to adopt Ghost, if once they could convince him. They'd been open to adoption for years if they stumbled across a kid that fit with them, and Ghost clearly needed someone in his corner. That had started Shota slowly walking to earn Ghost's trust. It began with keeping an eye out for him on patrols and giving him medical supplies, then giving him food, once he could be convinced it wasn't messed with, and helping patch him up, to the boy letting Shota give him tips and training him a bit. During the patrols, they started to share more often than not. Fast forward to the present day, Shota shook himself out of his ruminations as he pulled out a jelly potion drink before the patrols officially started. "You okay there, Razor?" Ghost asked, finishing up with the bento, hum tilted towards the hero. "Looked like you were thinking some serious thoughts, and I know it's dangerous for you." "Brat." Shota smacked at Ghost's shoulder while the kid snickered. "I'm fine, just a long day. How was yours?" "Oh, you know, same old. The vigilante huffed with an odd tone to his voice that combined with what he'd noticed earlier didn't bode well. Shota glanced over at him, eyes narrowed slightly in concern. It wasn't a tone he'd had often, but when he had indicated a bad day or something having happened, intended to foretell the kid being extra chaotic as the blew off steam as a result. "Anything you want to talk about?" The kid hesitated for a second before answering. "Not right now." The kid launched himself up to his feet after lightly tossing a bento box in Shota's lap and fixing the lower part of his helm back in place. Voices ordered kicking back on before speaking again. "Think I heard some assholes who decided to fuck around and find out calling my name." "Language problem, child." Shota ignored Ghost's scoff as he also hauled himself to his feet and tucked the bento bags into a small hidden spot on the roof. He'd picked it up when the end of his brother looped around back to his area, before pointing at the kid, now bouncing on his feet in the eagerness of a night of mischief. "Whatever you're thinking, no. I don't need you giving me any more gray hairs. It's not my fault you're old." Ghost cackled, voices sort of making the sound robotic and slightly off. "Think your Asian boys can keep up with me tonight?" "All the way around, Brad." Shota flashed a sinister grin. Hisashi claims he picked up from Nezu, before suddenly bolting into action off the roof, leaving the kid to curse and race after him. He was after all, once a problem child himself. Luckily, the patrol more or less went smoothly. Most of the more malevolent side of the city's nightlife probably decided it was safer to keep the heads down tonight, after some sort of sludge-filled incident had revealed All Might was in town. Shota had seen coverage of it on news when he'd broken from his short. They were always too short, nap, and he'd been pissed at the heroes standing on the sidelines. He never would have let students like that graduate. The night was mostly spent chasing each other across the rooftops of Musutavu. In an endless familiar back and forth, they slowly pulled Ghost out of the strange funky bin when the night started. "Oh my god, did you see his face?" Ghost giggled as Shota joined him on the roof of a nearby building, where he had been waiting for Shota to pass off the one low-level drug dealer they'd come across in the police custody. Yes, you're a menace to society." Shota tapped the top of the helmet like he was petting a kid's hair. "Now has your hunger for chaos been satisfied, tiny gremlin, or do you, Sashi and I need to be extra worried about you tonight?" "I'm not tiny," Ghost protested. Shota gave him a helmet and last tap, accelerating just how far down he had to move his hand to make contact and earning himself a tiny robotic huff. "And you don't have to worry about me. I can take care of myself. And Sashi's only met me like twice. Twice or not, we both care about you. That's why we're sorry, not because we have to. That's why we worry, not because we have to. I don't know what happened today to get you in that mood, and I'm not gonna make you talk about it if you don't want to, but you know I don't like the idea of you being alone, especially if you're that upset. I know you're safe. I know you say you're safe, wherever it is you call home, but I just want to remind you, you always have a place at ours, even if it's just for a night." Shota calmly watched his reflection in the blank visor as the kid contemplated. While he hadn't quite intended to have this conversation again, he meant every word and had no problem repeating it as many times as necessary. "I know, Razor Dad." Ghost eventually gave the same answer he always did, voice muted and soft, "but not tonight. Give the baby scritches for me, though." Shota nodded. "They don't deserve it, but sure." Shota loved his cats, but it didn't mean they were still little demons. "Get back safe." "You too." With that, the two went their separate ways, the hero stopping to pick up the bento box on his way back to the house for a shower, and what sleep he could get before work. He wished he knew what was holding the kid back, because it felt like more than just a struggle to believe someone actually wanted him. Until he knew what that was, though, there was nothing he could do to fix it. Such is better than most stuff, Shuddard thought to himself as he finally settled into bed, cuddled up next to the fastest sleep love of his life. Maybe he have some ideas about it. Then he finally closed his eyes and drifted to sleep. So,